Welcome to Bull TV. I'm your host, David Pickler. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting the citizens of Collierville who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies and is proudly produced by the students of Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at www.bulltv.show, thebullnetwork.com, and CHS-TV 19. New episodes air on the second Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Central Time. On today's show, we're sitting down with John Duncan, Director of Economic Development for Collierville, to discuss the fine amenities of our town. We'll take a look at the different attractions and businesses that make Collierville a great place to live, work, and play. And we'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how John and the town grow with purpose and balance. Stay tuned for this look at what's to come in Collierville, the role incentives play in attracting new businesses, and what has caused our town to become one of the premier communities in Tennessee. Today, I am joined by John Duncan, Director of Economic Development for the town of Collierville. A native Texan and career sales and marketing professional, John and his wife of now 35 years, Melanie, moved to Collierville in 1994 with their two daughters. As part of a corporate relocation, a graduate of Southern Methodist University in Dallas, John has worked for J&J, that's Johnson & Johnson, Mobil, Bryce Corporation, Alsac St. Jude, and the Greater Memphis Chamber before accepting the economic development role with the town in 2014. John, thank you for joining us for our episode of Bull TV.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. You know, one of the things that we like to do with this show is really get to know each of our guests. And so have a few questions for you in that regard. In 3 words, who is John Duncan?
You want my answer or what my girls would say? My girls would say old fat guy, but we won't go there. I would say Christian, family, friend.
Fantastic. All right. Other than when Melanie's cooking at home, what is your favorite place to go to have dinner in Collierville?
That's easy. I love Jim's Place Grill. And they've got a soflima, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, little pork tenderloin bits that are very tasty. So I will get a cup of their gumbo, which is very good, soflima, and that Italian spinach, and I'm happy. So I'd say Jim's Place.
It's a fantastic place. We're so blessed to have Jim's in this Collierville community. You know, having eaten at the original restaurant, way out off Summer for many, many years. We're thrilled to have them here. Yep. So in your role as the Director of Economic Development, really what are your roles and your responsibilities that you have?
Yeah, I think from a macro perspective, I am the de facto sales and marketing guy for the town of Collierville. And what I do is I promote Collierville as a expansion and relocation option or alternative for corporate headquarters, for office users, be it a district office or regional office or national headquarters or an ND center. I promote Collierville as the place where you need to bring that enterprise. I also promote Collierville for industrial users, warehouse, manufacturing, typically on the southeast side of town. And I also get intimately involved in restaurant and retail and commercial recruitment as well. I also have relationships with the existing businesses where I work with them to see if there's anything that the town can do to help them be more successful or what we can maybe do to help them thrive. So it's really a sales and marketing influencer, expansion, relocation role that takes up most, if not all, of my time.
Wow, that's a lot. Give us a little insight into What were the things involved with your previous roles, your previous jobs that really helped prepare you for this great position you have here with Collierville?
Right. We had a great conversation before the show started about your beginnings with Xerox and the sales skills you learned there. I had a similar journey when I just got out of college and worked for Johnson & Johnson in a sales role in a territory that I worked for years. Learned a lot about time management, relationship selling, features and benefits selling. From there, I moved on to mobile chemical, where I was involved with the packaging division. And all these jobs, it was competitive. It was, involved technical selling, features and benefits selling, trying to solve problems. It was relationships were very critical. All of that, you roll that in to one, that's what I do today. It's about connecting and understanding and helping in a very, very competitive environment, because economic development is probably the most competitive sales environment I've ever been involved with.
Wow, that's amazing. You talk a little bit about some of that, the challenges of competition. Yeah. What would you really say would be the most challenging aspect of your job?
The most challenging thing for what I do on a daily basis is probably the sales cycle, David, from maybe an initial conversation or a meeting to the point where a prospect might be interested in coming to town to do what I call a windshield tour, a site visit or a showcase, and then to the point where they might be interested in talking about specific properties or what the town could offer as far as incentives. The sales cycle can be years. Wow. And it's easy to get discouraged. You'll go months sometimes without talking, and then things happen quickly. So I think the biggest challenge is just being persistent and being organized to deal with the extended sales cycle.
You've been here so long, and you've been involved in so many amazing developments. What would you say would be the most exciting development that you've been a part of bringing to Collierville?
Well, I think that I haven't really been part of it, but I think the most exciting development for this town was the development of our independent school system and the development of this new high school. Revolutionary, game-changing, probably the biggest thing this town has done in its 150-year history. Mm-hmm. And what that means to the citizens, what that means to me in economic development, how I utilize that asset to promote our community. That by far is the biggest thing that we have done since I've been here. You want to go a little further back, FedEx bringing their World Technology Center here in the late 90s was a big deal as well. Sure. But the high school and how that differentiates and elevates our community is by far the biggest thing we've done.
I know you remember the great Herman Wright Cox.
Yes.
And what an incredible proponent of Collierville schools that he was, and the role that schools played in really making Collierville what it is today.
Right. And it still has that great reputation. I'm always looking at data and stats, and we talked about competitive selling earlier. How do we rank and stack up to those we're competing against? And year after year after year, Collierville schools are ranked amongst the top schools in the state of Tennessee and in the region. And we utilize that data point, and we promote that asset all the time, and it resonates with people from corporate headquarters to restaurant and retailers to industrial users as well.
We may be being a little repetitive here, and that's okay, but what do you think is it that makes Collierville such a great place to work, to live, to play, and really what do you think it is that is that point of differentiation that you're able to then use in your job?
That's a great question. I think what makes Collierville and the place you want to live and grow and be part of is it's the people, number one. We've got great people here. The neighborhoods are wonderful. The school system is top shelf. We've got great infrastructure and roads and assets as far as electricity and water. A few weeks ago, we didn't have a boil order in Collierville. We've got our own independent water system. So there's a lot to be said about our independence, be it infrastructure or the school system, and that resonates with people. And in many ways, David, that differentiates our community. But we've got great retail and restaurants and 18 plus miles of parks and trails, and we've got access to the airport and access to the beach, and we can get to Nashville in a couple hours, and this location works in a positive ways for a lot of different types of people. So at the end of the day, it's about differentiating our assets, going a little deeper about our school system, going a little bit deeper about our infrastructure, going a little bit deeper about our corporate presence here, our amenities. We got a Jack Nicklaus golf course, an Arnold Palmer golf course. So you can quickly see the things that we have that others may have, but ours are a little bit higher level, in my opinion. So that's really what differentiates us, I think.
You talk about all these different elements. How do you achieve that right balance when you're thinking about development, when you think about residential, you think about commercial, and clearly you talk about industrial?
Right. We have a plan. It's called the Collierville 2040 plan. That was developed maybe 10 years ago. We had citizens, business leaders, the BMA, government officials all together for weeks and weeks and weeks to establish a 2040 plan, which basically talks about how this town is going to be laid out. Residential here, and industrial over there, corporate, retail, restaurant, where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, materials, setbacks, structures. It's just a grand master plan of how this whole community is going to be laid out. And we've got a plan, a development plan, that goes all the way to 2040. And we project by 2040 that Collierville will be about a 75,000 population community. And there is a plan for that. We're not just going to wake up one day and say, oh, look around. There's 65, 70, 72,000 people here. We have a plan that's going to take us to that point. It's called the 2040 plan. And you can go on the town's website and simply do a search for 2040 and it'll pop up. It's be a great coffee table book for your house, David. It's about that thick, a lot of information, a lot of details, but it really shows the roadmap ahead for our community.
That's fantastic. And when you talk about this growth plan, you talk about 75,000 people, then I'm sure that there's a lot of attention that has to be paid to the type of mix you have, the type of revenue that's going to be generated by the different types of development, and the type of cost. Yes. How do you really address looking at that type of mix, and as you then quantify the revenue that's needed to fund all this infrastructure that you have to have?
Well, one of the great things about Collierville, different from a lot of other communities, is this is a very diverse community, not only diverse in the businesses that we have here, but diverse in the ethnicity of our citizens and diverse in the type of land and opportunities that we have. That is very sustainable for us. Our commercial community, for example, is very diverse. We've got small entrepreneurial mom and pop type businesses that are very successful up next door to some of the largest and most successful commercial brands in the country. Mm-hmm. And a little side note, during COVID, because of Walmart and 2 Krogers and a Home Depot and a Lowe's and a Target, our sales tax revenues in 2020 were ahead of our sales tax revenues in 2019.
Wow.
That diversity of businesses here allowed us to navigate through those choppy COVID waters. And another note is, in Collierville, only about 20% of our revenues come from sales tax revenues. A lot of communities, 50, 60% of their revenues come from sales tax revenues, and through COVID, they were hurting. They were challenged. We had our challenges, but we were able to navigate it pretty successfully because A, it's a smaller part of our overall budget, and B, our businesses thrived. So we've got this strong commercial component. We've got a strong office component, David. We've got over 4,000 corporate headquarters jobs in Collierville in about 1.7 million square feet of office space. And people say, how big is Collierville again? It's a 50,000 population town, and you've got all that? Yes, we do. We've got some dynamic assets here that are in many ways well beyond and above a community of our size, and it really speaks to the dynamics and the organization and the leadership of our community. So we've got this strong commercial, strong office environment with more to come. And then on the southeast side of town, we've got this emerging industrial development world happening as we speak with CCL Label and IPS, and FedEx has some facilities down there. So we've got this diverse economy, and that diversity of economy is what really is going to sustain us to 2040 and beyond.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, when you're talking to these business leaders and they're trying to make that decision about where they're going to locate,
Right.
what have you found to be the factors that are the most important that they're considering in making that choice?
They're all different, but they're all the same. We were in a meeting with Mueller Industries, who has built a 50,000 square foot corporate headquarters in Schilling Farms. There's about 150 people there with average salaries close to $90,000 a year. And when we finally had that meeting with their CEO, Mayor Joyner was there. My boss, Town Administrator James Llewellyn, was there. I was there. And he began to ask us about crime. Mm-hmm. And we said, Stan, why don't you take that one? We've got a great story to tell. Let's talk about the school system. It's important when I'm recruiting and retaining employees, he said, have a good school system. Tell me about the Collierville school system. We had a great story to tell there. What about access to the airport and the highways and access to my customers and my clients? We had a great story to tell with 269, 385, 72, et cetera. Let's talk about amenities, parks, shopping, golf, recreation. It was like, and he finally said, Collierville checks all the boxes. And we said, it sure does. And he made the comment, I will never have to apologize to my board or to my employees that I moved my enterprise to Collierville, Tennessee. And I think that speaks volumes about who we are and what we are. Because and I thought about making this a marketing campaign, we do check all the boxes. And that is a differentiator for us versus some other communities that we compete against.
Well, that's something we should all be proud of because it's, again, a community effort. And wow, what an amazing thing. So, all right, so the big question. So what can Colliervillians really look forward to in the coming weeks, months, and years?
When I first took this job, I go to the Methodist Church, and I was down at the rail after service saying a quick prayer, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. I thought for a second there that Jesus has come back, but it was some sweet lady from the church saying, I need to talk to you. So after I got finished, I walked to the back of the church, and she goes, when are we getting a grocery store? That is the number one question that I get. I oftentimes have to travel around town incognito for fear that I'm going to be accosted about the grocery situation. I will tell you that we've got some great grocery options in our community, but everybody wants to talk about that. And I would tell you right now, we're probably not going to get a Publix or a big box grocer anytime soon. We'll probably get a specialty grocery store sooner than we're going to get a big box grocery store. So I got to get that out of the way because people are always asking me about that. But as far as what's coming up the next weeks and months, I think in a couple of weeks, we're going to have an announcement about 2 new restaurants that are coming to town. I can't tell you who they are, but they are in that sort of QSR, quick service restaurant, elevated fast food brand category, kind of like a Slim Chickens type. You can sit down there. They have a patio, a robust drive-through, pickup, and takeaway options. A couple of restaurants along those lines, I think, is inbound here in the short term. IMC is building their new corporate headquarters in Schilling Farms, a 75,000 square foot, 3-story, 170 employee corporate headquarters. They'll be cutting the ribbon and opening and moving in there in about 120 days. So that's on the horizon. And I think you're going to continue to see more interest in Collierville as a corporate expansion relocation option. And on the industrial side, we're currently working on 2 big projects with TVA that could be very beneficial to our community. So there's a lot going on, a lot happening behind the scenes. And it's sort of like fishing off a boat. You got all these lines in the water, and you know you got the right bait, and the timing is right. You're just waiting for the fish to start biting, and I think we're going to have some bites here pretty soon.
Fantastic. Anything that's coming on the horizon in the entertainment area?
Well, there's been some talk about a new putting course that potentially could go there out in front of Malco, next door to McAllister's. It would be not your granddad's putt-putt course with the elephants and the clown mouth. It'd be more what I would call a resort amenity, a putting course that you might find at the Hyatt Regency in Austin, for example, a resort amenity, more of a putting course. That has been discussed. We are courting a large golf-related amenity that's very popular these days that you're seeing popping up in a lot of cities around the country. That is brewing to a certain degree. We hope to see that come to fruition here sooner than later. But as far as other types of amenities, I think you're going to continue to see restaurant and retailers realize the value of being here, and we'll see some development in that area as we continue forward.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about some of the issues. You mentioned COVID, and certainly COVID has accelerated the whole issue of online shopping.
Yes.
And online shopping has had, in some cases, a pretty damaging impact on retail.
Yeah.
One of our biggest development is Carriage Crossing.
Right.
How do they seem to be holding up with this changing world?
I think that Carriage Crossing is hanging in there as many retailers struggle, many large facilities, lifestyle centers, open-air retail, malls are hurting nationwide from Spokane to Miami, everywhere in between. The retailers are challenged. Carriage Crossing is doing well. Who's really doing well at Carriage Crossing are the restaurants. You look at Firebirds and Frida's and Hickory Taverns over there, Sticks, Carrabba's, Bonefish. They all seem to be doing well because they're good restaurants, and that's a great location. I think the retailers, to a certain degree, have their challenges, but our sunglass hut over there is one of the #1 sunglasses huts in the region. Our Barnes & Noble does well. Our Bed Bath & Beyond is doing very well over there. So the folks that are there with good products and good services are doing well. The big gap now is the Macy's has closed down or is closing down, which is unfortunate. They've been a great corporate citizen here for almost 20 years, but they're closing Macy's down nationwide. And that Macy's, quite frankly, is one of the last to shut down. So we're working very hard, not only with the owners of Carriage Crossing, but with some brokers to find a replacement, be it a big box retailer. Could we convert that into office space? Could it become experiential retail, maybe a climbing wall or go-karts or something like that? There's a lot of, could it be a performance venue, a convention product? We're trying to figure out how to rework that and find a new tenant so we can keep moving forward, because it's a great location in a community that's thriving. So we'll see what happens.
So sometimes you have to adapt to deal as these conditions change.
No doubt. And we've even talked about it becoming maybe an Amazon pickup and drop-off facility. There's some challenges with that because retail has changed. So how do we change with that? So we're working on it. We're thinking about it, and hopefully we'll come up with a solution.
Well, cool. Well, if you had a genie, what one business would you love to see come to Collierville?
Gosh, that's a great question. I do have a genie, by the way.
Good.
I need to go. No, when I had COVID.
One that taps you on the shoulder,
yeah,
right?
exactly. In church, no doubt. I'd like to see something like a Topgolf type development come to our community. I think it'd be great for our citizens. It'd be great for our corporate citizens. It would be a destination that would bring people to our community from all around. Collierville is many things, to include a regional hub. People come here from all around to enjoy our hotels and our restaurants and our shopping. But a Topgolf type product would be of great value, I think, for the citizens of our community. I would love to see another corporate headquarters or two come here, and we're working on that. The value of a corporate headquarters in your community is immeasurable. The short-term positive impact, the long-term positive impact is hard to beat. The FedEx World Technology Center, there's 2,700 people working there. 700 of those 2,700 live in Collierville.
Wow. If
you take the median home price in Collierville, $300,000 times 700, that's $210 million worth of residential real estate that FedEx World Technology Center influences, and the other corporate headquarters in our town can say similar things to that as well. So corporate headquarters, I would be happy if the genie told me that we're going to get a new corporate headquarters or two every year for the next 10 years. That'd make me really happy.
I think that would make a lot of people very happy.
No doubt.
You talked about this process. You talked about it can take years.
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind, give our viewers a little bit of a sense of the process, you know, from whether it be that first phone call coming in from a business or you making a cold call. Tell us a little bit about that process of how it starts from that vision to reality.
Well, the first part is, you know, what are you looking for? What do you need? You know, tell me about your organization. And then how does our community match that? And typically there's some discussion along those lines to begin with. And then I will start providing information about our community, a little more detail about our demographics, our assets, what it might look like for you to have your enterprise here as far as daily life, as far as where your employees might live, what it might look like when your prospects and clients come to town, what is the cost implications of you being here, what is the workforce going to look like in the short term and the long term, and you start putting all these pieces together and building a story, hopefully a compelling story that at the end of it, they can say, you know, based on all these things you've just outlined, to include talent and access and lifestyle and cost, it makes sense for us to be here. And then you start working on the real estate component of it, and we're working with real estate companies and landowners, and then it all just starts falling in place. And typically, a large headquarter user would seek incentives. So you do your due diligence and your cost-benefit analysis on all that to see if it makes sense for the town to abate taxes to have this Orgel, for example, come to our community, and typically that's another compelling story. So it takes time to do all that. It's a dance, it's a conversation, it's communication, it's exchanging, and in the end, you hope you're cutting a ribbon and welcoming a new corporate partner to your community.
It truly is the ultimate relationship sell, isn't it?
It is.
And wow, that's amazing. You know, another, I think, crown jewel that we have in Collierville is our historic town square.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about the challenges that we face for a business startup there, or the opportunities. And how do we do that and still preserve this wonderful historic feel and the heritage that we have with that town square?
It's a great question. I think the town works hard to keep the facade and the design and the look of the square historic. You know, we were going to replace some shingles, I think, on the gazebo, and that was like a 6-month discussion. Okay, how are we going to do this? What is it going to look like? It needs to fit. It needs to match. We can't change the tone and tenor of the square by changing one of the centerpieces, the centerpiece of the square. So there's a lot of thought given to how we're going to develop it, how we're going to refine it. You know, they built the new restrooms there on the southeast side of the square. A lot of thought went into what's it going to look like? Is it going to fit? Is it going to match? We need it. We need something like this on the square. So they work hard to make sure that the tone and tenor of the historic square is maintained. And we work with the, you know, Main Street Collierville. We work with the merchants to encourage them, to help them thrive and survive. And what can we do to help them have a better face or presence on the square? The square, at the end of the day, is the heartbeat of our community. When we show a corporate prospect around town and do the windshield tour of the showcase, we take them to the square. It's an important part of who we are. In fact, we're getting ready to start a new marketing campaign about Collierville, and basically the theme is at the crossroads of tradition and innovation.
Oh, I love it.
And that whole tradition component is the square, is the school system, which is sophisticated, but it's a traditional school system. But the square is about who we really are, where we've been, and in many ways where we're going. The square is critically important to us. And I would tell you, through COVID, a lot of the businesses and a lot of the restaurants on the square survived and thrived. And if you've been down there lately, they continue to update. Cafe Piazza has built a patio off to the side, which is an improvement. The Highlander has a new patio out back, which has gotten very popular. And as you probably are aware, Frank Fitzgerald is talking about building a 35 to 40 room boutique hotel off the square that would require a 2 or 3 story parking garage being built to complement that. So there's a lot going on and still going on, to include, you know, we renovated the historic high school and turned it into our school offices It looks beautiful. University of Memphis built a satellite campus down there. So the square continues to grow and thrive. The housing down there is magnificent.
It is.
So we are, and one more thing, we got a grant from the state to fix Center Street from the square all the way to 72. It's a multi-phase project, but we're working to update the infrastructure down there as well. So there's a lot that has gone on and will continue to go on to keep the square vibrant and relevant.
Wow. There's so much going on, and this may be a hard question, but developmentally speaking, what do you think has been the most impactful thing that's happened over the past 20 years to really help grow development in this community?
Well, I get back to the schools. I think the continued development and expansion of our school system is critical for our growth. At the end of the day, Collierville is a family town. Collierville is about kids and parents and families that are here for a variety of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is it's safe, and they got great schools and great churches and great neighborhoods, and the town spends a lot of money on our police force.
Yep.
They're properly funded and trained, and the fact that we've got some of the lowest crime in the region is a testament to the fact that we've invested in that. Same with the fire department. A lot of our budget goes to those two entities, and that is important if you want to have a thriving town. If we didn't have that, if we didn't have low crime, people wouldn't be moving here like they're moving here. And it's the schools, it's how the town is managed, it's how people feel, not only with the square, or the fact that they feel safe when they're in Collierville is critically important. And that's what we're challenged to continue to maintain as we go forward.
Goodness. You talked a little bit earlier about the process. And you made mention about the role of incentives.
Yep.
And obviously, clearly, the businesses are looking for the right financial package.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the role that incentives play in attracting businesses and industry to come to Collierville.
Well, it's, you talk about the schools, the infrastructure, the shopping, all the amenities, the parks. Why do we need to offer incentives? Well, a lot of towns have parks and schools and amenities as well, and they think theirs are as good, if not better than ours. I would debate that, but it's just part of the process, and we take a deep look at our incentives, and I'll give you an example. Mueller built a 50,000 square foot corporate headquarters right next door to the YMCA. They made a $15 million investment in our community. That land, that vacant land that had dirt and weeds on it before Mueller came, was only generating $5,000 a year in property taxes. Now here comes Mueller, $11 million in payroll, 150 people working there, short-term construction payroll of $5 million, and the incentive is structured in such a way that it's called a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot. They're still making a payment, not a full tax bill, but a payment of about $25,000 for a period of time. So it went from $5,000 in property taxes. Now here they come with all these jobs, all these people, short-term, long-term benefit. They're going to pay us $25,000 a year. And then when they roll off the pilot rolls, they'll roll on to the tax rolls. All of a sudden that $25,000 a year becomes $150,000 a year. So in the short term and the long term, having organizations like Mueller come to town are very beneficial, and we do a deep analysis to make sure it makes sense. And this one, for example, does.
Wow. You've had such an incredible impact on the growth of this community. What is the greatest lesson that you have learned in your role as the director?
We have got, one of the greatest products out there. And when I first started, I felt like, okay, we're competing against Germantown and Bartlett, Memphis to a certain degree, maybe DeSoto County. And as I've grown into this job, I've realized Collierville, the little engine that could, we talked earlier, a 50,000 population community, in many, many, many ways, we can compete with just about anybody. And we benchmark against Franklin, Tennessee, and Chesterfield, Missouri, outside of St. Louis, Overland Park, Kansas, outside of Kansas City, Marietta, Georgia, and Atlanta, Carmel, Indiana, outside of Indianapolis. We're as competitive, if not more competitive, than those communities. And I think what I've learned is, hey, we've got a lot going for us. We can check a lot of the boxes, and I learned that I need to take the brand out regionally, nationally, and even internationally because we can compete. There's no doubt.
That's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
Wow. What is the most rewarding thing to you personally about the position that you're in, is really being the gatekeeper for development for Collierville?
Yeah, I stand at the entrance to 385 in Bahalia. Halt! Who goes there? I'm just an influencer. I'm just one of many involved in this. But I think the most rewarding thing has been to be part of the success that we've had in the short term. I feel good about that. I feel like I'm part of a team that's working to leave Collierville better than we found it, if you will. It's been great for many, many years, but I feel like we continue to build and grow and do a lot of strategic things, a lot of right things. And I feel like I'm part of that process, and that's been very rewarding when I drive by Mueller or drive by Orgel or go by, Collierville Commissary or Pimentos. I feel like I had something to do with that. That's pretty cool.
That's neat. One of the things that we try to do with the show is, since we are here at Collierville High School and we are working in partnership with that, and we have these great kids who are really, running the production of it, is also really provide messages.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most important attribute that you've learned about being a leader?
Great question. That could be a whole other show, couldn't it, David?
Absolutely.
I think what I've always tried to do, what I tell people that have worked for me and people that I've mentored, is I think you need to be as relational to the guy on the third shift in the plant as you do with the CEO of that organization. You need to build relationships at all levels, meaningful relationships at all levels, not just focus on the 2 or 3 influencers or decision makers, but you need to spend time with and develop relationships with a lot of different types of people at a lot of different levels. And if you do that from a personal perspective, it'll be rewarding. And if you do that from a professional perspective, you'll have a great career, you'll have a great run, and you will have a rewarding rhythm to your life if that's what you're doing.
Goodness gracious. Well, last question. You have had such an incredible impact on this community and on everyone who lives in this community. When you reflect on your career, what would you hope would be the legacy of John Duncan?
Wow, that's another great question. I really don't think about that. I just want to be somebody people look back and remember that guy that was doing economic development a few years ago. I hope that people would feel like we made the right decisions, we made strategic decisions, and we did things that benefited everybody in this community in some way or another. I think that would be what I hope would be the outcome of my time as Economic Development Director.
Wow. Well, John, thank you so very much for joining us. This is just our 3rd episode of Bull TV, but you've really made this very, very special. And
Thanks.
We appreciate everything that you do for this community.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
The great English naturalist Charles Darwin was known for his work on the evolution of species. He spent a lifetime developing theories on why some animals survived and others did not. Darwin did not believe in the survival of the fittest. However, he believed that those who survive are the ones most able to adapt and evolve as their environment changes. Today, we are living in a time of exponential change. Our ability to grow and thrive as a community will be dependent on our ability to continue to adapt to the challenges of the future. Hockey legend Wayne Gretzky was once asked what was the secret behind his tremendous success on the ice. Gretzky responded by saying that most players skate to where the puck is, but he skated to where the puck was going to be. The future is a moving target. Our future success will depend on our commitment to continuous growth and the capacity to adapt to changes that we will confront. And that is my 2 cents. We invite you to join us next month as we sit down with Cassie Foote, an integral part of 2 local nonprofits. Cassie serves as Assistant Executive Director of the American Public Education Foundation and Executive Director of the Collierville Partners in Education. In the show, we will discuss workforce development in our schools. In our second episode of Bull TV with Dr. Gary Lilly, we touched on the importance of workforce development. And in our next episode with Cassie, we will converse on how these 2 nonprofits, APEF and PI, and Collierville High School are paving the way for students to succeed beyond the classroom. Until next time, I'm your host, David Pickler. Thank you for watching Bull TV, where together we deliver solutions for a stronger community.